I decided to do this solo primarily for two reasons. First of all, it's so intuitively melodic. You know, you just hear it and it makes sense. This simple, beautiful melody. And the simplicity of the language also means that we can look at the solo without being bogged down by things like harmonic analysis too much. Second of all, maybe more importantly, the solo has this very structured and thoughtful narrative that doesn't really include a whole lot of drama. He plays in this very bare bones manner that requires the narrative building to be very precise, and I want to understand how he builds that narrative without screaming too much or playing excessively fast. So originally I was hoping to get through this entire solo, but I realized that to cover the entire thing with the detail that it deserves is unfeasible. So I'm pretty much just going to focus on this first chorus over here. And in future videos, I'll talk about the rest. I'm pretty much going to be covering the way he structures the solo, rather than focusing on specific language he is using. So let's look at this chorus. My take on it is that there's pretty much 4 main phrases in here. He has phrase number 1 over here, then he has 2, 3, and then 4. There's a break over here, but I'm going to be talking about that later. And the way I hear it, it seems like there's sort of a question-response structure to this chorus. So he has question, response, question, response. Yeah, and this is sort of an extended response that I'll be covering. So let's first listen to this chorus with these things in mind. It's super clean, right? The intention is so clear and it's so thoughtfully executed. And there are two main things I want to say about this chorus. So first of all, the structure is very strong. But at the same time, this is the second point. At the same time, there is a good amount of spontaneous surprise. So let's look at the structure first. I've already mentioned that there's this structure of question, response, but there's also a little more structure to it than that. So the first thing I noticed was that he starts each of these phrases with this like 2-beat pickup. And they all sort of start on beat 3, which is very interesting. I mean, he has like those pickups over there, but pretty much beat 3. And if you look at the endings, there's also this very natural progression to it, right? He starts off with 2 eighth notes, starting on beat 1, right? Then the ending of the second phrase is 2 half notes, starting on beat 1. And over here, I noticed the pattern of beat 1 and 3 that's going to carry through with the rest of the phrases. Over here again, starts on beat 1, hits 1 and 3, and the last one also starts on beat 1, hits 1 and 3. Kind of interesting, right? I know that it's going to seem maybe a little overly analytical. Like, Sonny couldn't be thinking that. No way, this is an improvised solo. Like, is he really thinking about these things when he's playing? When I first heard about this sort of analysis from my friend, I was a little skeptical too. But after you hear it, it's undeniable that the intent is there in one form or another, you know, either consciously or subconsciously. So listen again, but keep these things in mind. See, doesn't that inform the hearing so much? Like, you can totally hear that Sonny Rollins is intentionally doing that. Maybe, I'm not going to go all the way to say that he consciously thought, oh, I'm going to start every phrase with beat 3. But he definitely felt in some way that he was starting each phrase in a similar way. And it just happened to manifest in this very logical way. I also want to point out this sort of progression that he has with these endings. You know, it starts off with 2 eighth notes, it expands into these 2 half notes, and then he sticks with this 1 and 3 pattern. And the next time he sort of fills it in a little bit more, and at the end he completely fills it in. Yeah, with little things like this, you can totally hear that there's this structure, this repetition, but at the same time there's a good amount of forward momentum with variation. Yeah, there's so much to learn from that. The last thing I want to look at in this chorus was this element of surprise and variation that he includes, mostly by looking at this last phrase over here. So first of all, if you look at phrases 2 and 3, you'll see that they pretty much have identical structure. You know, they start off the same way, pick up into 3, pick up into a new chord too. The meat of the phrase is 2 bars, right? And they end with that 1 or 3 pattern. You know, when you hear that, you sort of expect the last phrase, phrase 4, to follow that same pattern, but it doesn't. I want to play for you an example of what it would sound like if he followed that same pattern. This is something I've been doing a lot. Like, imagine that he played 2 bars, and then he ended with like a 1 and 3 sort of thing. You know, it sounds a little too predictable. Like, the resolution is too strong. It feels like the end of the solo. It's too heavy, and you would need a ton of momentum to keep the solo going. It's sort of like ending a chorus, playing on beat 1, playing the 1 on the tonic chord. You know, just too heavy, too predictable, a little boring. This is something I've been doing with art a lot in general. Like, in order to appreciate the choice that an artist made, I think about the alternative that he could have done. Maybe the thing that is most predictable. And that really helps you appreciate, you know, that artistic choice he made. But let's see what he does instead. So first of all, he adds sort of this break over here. This is a break, right? And instead of resolving over here on the 1 and 3 ending, he sort of goes, psych, I'm going to play pretty much what I played in the previous measure to signal that, oh, this resolution has not happened yet. And he's going to extend it for 2 more bars and then resolve it in sort of familiar 1 and 3 way that we were talking about. Yeah, so he deviates from the pattern, but then gently comes back to it by playing that 1 and 3 ending. I just think that's brilliant. Yeah, to me it seems like he wraps up the chorus perfectly and ends that statement without really stamping a the end. It's like a very delicate balance. See, so from just this one chorus we've learned so many things. You know, ways to add structure, ways to add variation, and maybe a nice way to end the chorus as well. Yeah, at this point in my musical development, these sort of like macroscopic ideas are just as important to me as, you know, language and note ideas, harmonic ideas. I've recently read Ethan Iverson's blog about how he's returning to guys like Lester Young to fill in gaps in his playing. And I'm guessing that it's things like this that are part of the wisdom that he's looking for when he's going back to listen to the greats. So that's it for this video. So it's pretty much an in-depth look at the first chorus of the solo. There's so much more good stuff in here that I will definitely return to in future videos. If you have any criticism, any comments, anything, I would greatly appreciate it. Yeah, and if you have any other thoughts about the solo, any other things that you've analyzed and pointed out, I would definitely love to hear that as well.